The Hunter Biden gun conviction is just, but it's also a distraction, a deflection, and a giant red herring. Don't be duped. I'll explain because the show starts now. So, the president's wayward son, Hunter, was indeed convicted of all three felonies in his federal gun trial. And while justice was indeed served here and the evidence was pretty black and white, this is still a victory for the Bidens, for the left, and for the mainstream media hacks. And I'll tell you why. The gun charges were the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest and cleanest way to go after a Biden without really going after a Biden, at least in any meaningful and significant way. I contend the swampy DOJ and special counsel David Weiss set this thing up purposely to ultimately help, not hurt, the Biden family. These gun charges are serious. Crack addicts shouldn't lie to obtain firearms, and said firearms probably shouldn't be thrown in a dumpster, obviously. But this gun case is really the only part of Hunter's crime spree that doesn't touch the big guy, Ice Cream Joe. But what it did serve to do is give the appearance that the DOJ is fair and no one is above the law. This guilty verdict is just, and I commend the jury, but it's really more of a gift to the left than an acquittal. Now, the Bidens and their enablers in the media can slough off claims of the rigged justice system that railroaded Donald Trump because the president's son felt the long arm of the law too. Not really, but for the low-info viewer or voter, it does the trick, or enough of the trick. The bare minimum needed, and most importantly, it doesn't touch Joe himself. The Hunter gun case was the sacrificial lamb, and the low-hanging fruit. Don't fall for it. The media hacks and swamp rats will just use it as a whataboutism when they throw Trump in jail for a crimeless crime. But I gotta hand it to Democrats because they are so strategic. They are also strategic enough to know they can't really run this guy for dog catcher, let alone president.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
But nevertheless, the RNC needs to stay vigilant when they swap Joe out, which I'm still adamant they will. The RNC needs to be ready to take on the new nominee, but also the message of the Democrats, not just whomever the messenger happens to be. And the RNC for damn sure needs to focus on getting out the vote. My next guest has literally dedicated his life to that very cause. Conservative activist Scott Presler joins me now. Scott, I know you're so busy. You're out there, you're beating the pavement, you're getting the work done. So I need to get kind of a diagnosis from you on where we are with the voter registration efforts. I know you've been doing so much work. How you feeling about it?
Well, thank you, Tomi, for having me back. You know, I'm focused on Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And so I'm a data guy, I'm a numbers guy. And I'm looking at North Carolina, where 2 years ago, the Democrats had an advantage of 300,000 more Ds than ours. And now that is cut in half to only 150,000 more Democrats and Republicans in the great state of North Carolina. And I look at Nevada, where, you know, you have incumbent Jackie Rosen running for Senate in that state. And we have our new candidate, and the Republicans basically outmatched the Democrats in the state of Nevada. I believe Nevada is trending to the right, especially with Donald Trump saying that he is not going to tax tips. And in that state, that's going to make a big difference. And then now we come to my baby, which is Pennsylvania. And so 2 years ago, the Democrats had an advantage of 595,000 more Democrats and Republicans in the state. And now that number is close to 270,000. I mean, we are making waves in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're making waves, quite frankly, everywhere. But I don't want people to become complacent. Like you just said, 5 months is a lifetime when it comes to elections. We need to continue to focus on this summer going to every carnival and festival and rodeo and gun show. We need to meet people where they are, get them registered to vote, and make sure that they have a plan to vote this November.
Yeah, I want to get into that too, because the voter registration is such an important part of this. I think a lot of us are really stunned to find out that there are so many Republicans out there, Republican minded people, conservative minded people, or people that just quite frankly don't like what Joe and Democrats are doing to the country. But then we're stunned to find out that they're actually not registered to vote, or maybe they let their registration lapse, or maybe they move and never re-registered. So when you're talking to these people and you're getting them registered, what do they tell you about why they're not registered, or what is their explanation for that?
Well, some people just have never voted. And I know that sounds so weird, but this year alone, and this is anecdotal, but this is my lived experience, we have registered people that were born in 1965 and have never voted in their entire lives. And they're saying, Scott, I'm voting this year. And it's because of the economy. They realize, I've been told, something is not right. Everybody can feel it. Everybody knows it. The world is upside down. They don't want the war. The economy is terrible. Inflation is killing us. They see the crisis at the border. Everything is going wrong. And I think even the people that aren't politicos like you and I are, they're really waking up to that reality that they want change. And so as opposed to just sitting on the sidelines, they want to be a part of the process. But one thing that I'm finding as well, Tomi, is we have some people who, when I ask them if they're registered to vote, they say, Scott, I can't vote. And I usually have come to find out that means that they're a former felon. And I am here to tell you that we are targeting the former felon community in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Once somebody, Tomi, is no longer incarcerated, even if they're on probation, even if they're on parole, they have the ability to register to vote and their rights are automatically restored. And I'm here to tell you that the inmate population loves Donald Trump. I'm being invited to jails across Pennsylvania, and I cannot wait to show the Democrats that all of those laws that they've been putting on the books for all these years trying to restore felons' rights, well, that may very well help to elect Donald Trump this November.
Okay, I want to dive into that a little bit because we saw a fundraising boost for Donald Trump after that crimeless crime conviction. We saw the donations coming in, the Trump campaign saying that, as much as 30% of the donations coming in are from first-time donors. So you mentioned people that are first-time voter registrants, but also there are first-time donors that were really energized, riled up by that guilty conviction. So now you're mentioning the felons that are saying, hey, we identify with Donald Trump. I'm not sure how great that message is. I mean, listen, I don't know. We'll take it. We'll take it. But are you hearing, when you're out there traveling the country, when you're registering voters, when you're going to events, are you hearing people say that this conviction is what put them over the edge? Or does that just feel like it is when we talk about it on this grand scheme of things?
Yes, I have had the night of the conviction. I mean, my phone has been blowing off the hook ever since the conviction. I can't work fast enough, Tomi, to deal with all of the volunteers that want to help out. And really, it's in blue areas of the country. I mean, Chester County, Montgomery County, Philly County, those are all in Southeast Pennsylvania. We have seen an explosion of activism, especially after that night. And I think people just realize how unfair our criminal injustice system is. Hillary Clinton can bleach bit emails, and, we can have Obama, bomb Syria, and then we can have the Obama-Biden people, give billions of dollars to Iran that hate us. And there has been no other conviction, yet we convict Donald Trump. So I think people just understand the injustice that is going on, this two-tier system, and they're done with it. They're tired of it. And as opposed to just chirping on social media, we're actually seeing that translate into dollars, into donors, into people that want to go out and register voters. So yes, I can tell you firmly that since the conviction, we have seen an explosion of activism.
That's great to hear. There have been some polls coming out from more, liberal polls and echoed by liberal networks saying that there are Republicans that are put off by the conviction, that they don't feel that Donald Trump is fit for office due to the conviction. They feel that he is a felon. They feel that he doesn't represent them. Some polls are telling us that. I'm not sure how accurate that is. Have you heard anybody that's maybe kind of on the fence, maybe with that former never Trump camp of Republican that are telling you, Scott, I want to vote for Republicans, but I'm going to write somebody in because of this? Have you really heard much of that at all?
I think it's baloney, Tommy. The never Trumpers that weren't going to vote for President Trump anyway, maybe the Nikki Haley-ites, they're using that as an excuse now, and they're buying into that narrative. They're feeding into it to do everything they can to hurt Donald Trump. But I want to make it loud and clear. I am convicted to vote for President Donald Trump. And furthermore, my vote for Donald Trump is locked up. And I say that we need to lean into the conviction. Don't run away from it. This is our opportunity. I mean, you should see this coalition that we're building, from fraternity brothers to members of the Amish community, to former felons, to moms, to dads, to business owners, to gun owners, to hunters, to truckers, to bikers. This is going to be a coalition this November unlike anything the Republican Party has ever seen before. And so I say lean into the conviction. Do not run away from it.
I agree. And a lot of those gains have been really in your column because you've been out there doing the hard work. I'm glad that the RNC has finally acknowledged you, reached out to you, allowed you to really come into the fold, because you have been one of those foot soldiers out there for so long, finally getting the attention and the accolades that you deserve. You mentioned something earlier, and I saw a tweet that you put out yesterday or maybe the day before about writing on the receipt. Hey, listen, you mentioned that in Nevada, a big deal. Trump said he's not going to tax your tips. And you put that out there and you said, listen, I'm writing that on the receipt, reminding folks about that. Tell me a little more about that and how you think we can use some of that messaging to the advantage of the Republican Party.
Well, I'm constantly lurking on social media and watching everybody's comments. And so we crowdsource a lot of ideas. And you just saw the hat tip on there to Truth Warrior FJB. He's on vacation with his bride in Tennessee. And he had the idea to put, Trump won't tax your tips on the receipt. And I assume he gave a cash tip to his waiter or waitress. Actually, he told me he spoke to the young man and he was like, I'm all about it, getting more money into my packet. And I just want to see this spread like wildfire. What a great grassroots, peer-to-peer way of connecting with the community by showing them that you care, and ultimately showing that by electing Donald Trump, we're going to provide a better economy and a better livelihood for people. And so I encourage you guys, the next time you go to the hair salon, or you go to the barber, or your restaurant, or your bar, whenever you tip somebody, say, I want 100% of this tip to go to you. And if you elect Donald Trump this November, then he won't tax your tips. Very nice to meet you. Have a nice day, whatever. But use that peer-to-peer grassroots organizing and take a picture and tag me. And I would love to see the connections that you guys have across the country.
It's a great idea because it's something that people can feel and apply to their real life. There's a lot of people who don't understand Israel, Hamas. They don't understand Ukraine. They might not even understand tax policy. But when you tell them, hey, listen, Donald Trump, that tip that I just gave you, Donald Trump's not going to tax that and rip it out of your pocket. They understand that at a very basic level. So you're right about that messaging. That micro messaging is just as important as the big campaigns and the money spends and all of that. So important. I know there's still a lot of Republican voters out there, Trump supporters out there, though, and they tell me all the time, Tommy, I support Donald Trump, but listen, it's rigged. We're never going to win. They're going to rig the election. That's still a sentiment that's out there. So what do you do? I'm sure you hear it a lot. What do you tell them to ease their concerns or maybe re-energize them when they feel like their vote doesn't count?
Well, I understand your sentiment. 2020 was soul crushing to anyone that feels that way. And I'm speaking especially to you, the viewer at home right now, that feels that way. But let's talk about numbers for a second. We know that they threw everything in the kitchen sink at us in 2020. And despite that, they only won by 60,000 votes. You look at Arizona, 10,000 votes, Georgia, 10,000 votes, Wisconsin, 20,000 votes, Pennsylvania, 80,000 votes. That's nothing. Anyone that says that was a repudiation or that was a slam dunk is just being disingenuous to you. So let's talk about Pennsylvania for a second. That 80,000 number that I just said to you, there are 80,000 Amish in Pennsylvania. Wow. That's the election, guys. There are 80,000 truckers in Pennsylvania. that's the election. There are 400,000 members of the Jewish community, which, by the way, are turning their backs against the Democrat Party with the rise of anti-Semitism and that the fact that the Democrat Party is embracing Hamas. There are 800,000 veterans in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And furthermore, there are 930,000 hunters in Pennsylvania. Now, Tomi, I might remind you that 1/3 of those 930,000 hunters are not registered to vote. And furthermore, in the state of Wisconsin, which was won by 20,000 votes, there are 20,000 Amish, and 40% of Wisconsin hunters are not registered to vote. So you at home, if you want to make a difference, please, I need you to go to your farmer's market. I need you to go to gunshowtrader.com and contact those vendors and set up a voter registration table at the gun shops and gun shows and gun ranges. I mean, oh my gosh, I firmly believe we have so much potential to win this November. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take sweat equity, but I would not be spending my time. I would not be moving to Pennsylvania, spending my life savings to buy a house if I did not believe that we could win the state, we could elect Donald Trump, and we could save the country.
That's fantastic to hear about the Amish. When you talk to Amish folks, you know, for places in the country that don't have a big Amish population, that don't really understand that community and that way of life, when you talk to these Amish folks about Donald Trump, what is the interaction like? I'd be really curious to know.
Well, you know, they're really welcoming. And so when you have this 6'5", long-haired, pretty boy wearing cowboy boots, you know, come to their farm, I mean, you couldn't find a nicer, more welcoming, more hospitable community. And in fact, Tomi, I don't know if you saw it, but I recently milked a cow at an Amish farm by hand. So, I mean, I will do whatever it takes, quite frankly, to win a vote. But it's been, quite frankly, challenging their belief system, and not in an antagonistic way, not in a confrontational way. But we had one conversation with a gentleman for 30 minutes who was so adamant about not voting. But the next day, he reached out to Chairwoman Juanita of Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. Mifflin County is that Amish community. And he turned in a voter registration form to her. And he said, you know, I've never been asked why I don't vote. I've never been asked to vote. And the last thing that I really want to touch on, Tomi, because I don't know how much time we have, is Amber Rose is a model, a singer, and an actress. And I know that she's from South Philly. So I posted to her on X the other day and just said, Amber Rose, you know, I know you're from South Philly. 25% of Philadelphia wins the election. If you would ever consider a voter registration event, we will roll out the red carpet for you. And she responded to me. So where I'm going with this is, guys, leave no stone unturned. You cannot receive what you do not ask for. And I want you to register every voter. I want you to court every voter, and you ask for their votes for President Trump this November.
And Republicans up and down the ballot as well. I know that that's
of course
a goal of yours, because we got to get Trump elected, but we got to get a lot of good Republicans in there as well. That's just so interesting to me that there are so many folks out there that haven't voted, that never thought about voting, or they feel disenfranchised, they don't want to vote. But when you make them feel special, like you were so great at doing, they change their mind because they feel like they got a part of something, they have a stake in something.
Yes.
And it's amazing to me that having those conversations can be so powerful, but it is, and you're doing it every single day. Last thing I want to talk to you about is this whole effort to swamp the vote. We mentioned voter registration, but also what can people and Republicans do to get out the message about early voting, ballot harvesting where it's legal? I know that you're invested in that as well. What can we do, and how do people who are so unfamiliar with that process get acquainted with it and understand what the opportunities are?
Well, remember that in order to ballot harvest or chase the vote, etc., somebody must first be registered. And so in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for example, they have early voting for up to 50 days. And so that's the timeline that we're going to be ballot chasing, ballot harvesting legally, etc. Now, really, though, It's what happens from now going in to those 50 days that is going to determine who wins the election, which is why we must focus on the voter registration. Now, if you're at home right now, and let's say that you're in Idaho, or you're in Nebraska or California or Connecticut or Rhode Island, or Alabama. So you're either in a really blue state or you're in a really red state, and you're going, Scott, like, I'm watching you on Tammy right now. I want to help out. I want to do something. Well, I want to give a shout out to Marcella in California. She's a grandmother, and she's written 2,000 handwritten letters to swing voters in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
She's using her time and talent from a blue state to help swing a purple state to red and elect Donald J. Trump and McCormick to the United States Senate, since you so aptly said that we must have a Senate, we must have a Congress so that Donald Trump can pass legislation like not taxing tips. So if you guys are so bold that you want to help out, I want you to please download my application, which is called Early Vote Action. Early Vote Action. It's on iPhone, it's on Android, it's free. And guys, you have 4 different methods of communication. If you're local, you can do door knocking. And if you're in California but want to help Pennsylvania, for example, you can write postcards. You can send text messages. You can make phone calls. And you know what the coolest part is? We're also being very targeted in the work that we're doing. We're reaching out to young registered Democrat males in Allegheny with a pro-peace, anti-war message. We're reaching out to registered members of the Jewish community with an anti-Hamas, pro-peace in the Middle East message. And I tell you, we are strategically focusing on leaving no stone unturned, and I would love your help at earlyvoteaction.com. And furthermore, if you love the work that I'm doing, we are hiring, but we need more financing. We need more funding. Please, if you feel so generous, go to earlyvoteaction.com.
Scott, you're doing such great things. You're out there and you have such a positive, energetic attitude. It's what we're really missing, I believe, in the Republican Party at large, is the enthusiasm that you have and the tenacity that you have. You know, I sing your praises every chance that I can get, and I know that you're such a busy guy out there doing so much work. Thank you for taking the time today. Earlyvoteaction.com. If you're excited about Donald Trump, you're excited about taking this country back, making it great again, please go visit Scott's website, help him out, do what you can. It's going to take all of us, but it can be done, and Scott is living proof of that. Scott, thank you so much. Be safe out there, and thanks for everything that you do.
Thank you. And one last thing. I'm coming to the Iowa truck stop. I'm coming to Sturgis with 500,000 bikers. I'm coming to Alaska. We're coming, baby. Let's go. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Scott, and be safe out there.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Scott. All right, folks. The Biden apologists are bending over backwards and contorting their brains and loop-de-loops to make you believe Hunter's felony conviction is just another example of fatherly love. Yeah, sure, if fatherly love includes getting his cut of the family influence peddling scheme. It's time for Final Thoughts. Like I said at the beginning, you know the Hunter Biden gun conviction is a red herring by how Democrats and their comrades in the mainstream media are reacting to it with freaking glee. Hunter's conviction on the lowest hanging fruit charge is what they needed to absolve all the obvious indicators the DOJ and justice system is rigged against Donald Trump. Hunter committed a cut-and-dried crime. He was an active crack addict who pretended he wasn't on a federal gun form. The evidence was unavoidable, even in Biden country, Delaware. Shoot, there was even audio of Hunter from his own book admitting he was a crack addict at around the same time he bought the gun and lied on the flippin' form. The bright leftist legal mind still cannot tell us what Trump's crime was. So the two cases are apples and oranges, and anyone with a shred of integrity and or half a brain knows that. But beyond that, the way Biden's surrogates are once again playing the loving father card in their sympathy play is just super nauseating. Take a look.
Personally, it's very hard. I mean, the Biden family is incredibly close. They're very close-knit. They lean on each other. I worked for Joe Biden for almost 8 years. I sat in countless meetings in different scenarios, including in the Oval Office, when a member of his family would call him and he would stop a meeting and step out to take a call from his family. I mean, he truly puts family first. So for him, obviously, this is very hard.
Of course, Joe took calls from his family. He had to sit around on speakerphone, too, to seal the damn business deals. Joe puts family first if family gives him a cut of the influence peddling. But he apparently doesn't put family first when it comes to his own granddaughter, Navy. Joe and elder abuser Jill don't even acknowledge her existence except for that one time they had to after the media finally pushed the issue last year. But according to Navy's mom, London Roberts, loving Pop Joe hasn't even met his 5-year-old granddaughter. So save it with the loving father charade. No one is buying it. Joe shields Hunter because Hunter and his laptop have a crap ton of dirt linking right back to the big guy. It's a symbiotic relationship like barnacle on a whale. That whole family is chock full of deadbeats, users, and elder abusers. Now you can add convicted felon to the list, but that might be the least egregious accolade in the pile. But those are just my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live again at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.